Besides Initial D, there's another huge story that talks about cars, One Gun Midnight. I don't even need to elaborate the whole video to say that this is a sensational experience, but for you to think that, it's not that simple. Well, after Initial D, that kind of everyone knows, even those who aren't that fond of cars, because Eurobeat and Tofu Cargo. Manga Midnight is the second place when it comes to Japanese car stories in anime or manga format, which a lot of people talk about very well, but the height of the step from Initial D to this story is much bigger than it seems, even though it's the first and second most famous story of the genre. So, at what point they are different? Well, all of them. But first, before finding out if it's worth watching, let's talk about the story. In Initial D, you have a potato boy who doesn't really like cars, but drives his father's car to deliver tofu in the mountains of Guma. Here, we have a equally potato boy. I would say that Akio is even more of a vegetable than Takumi. For real, but anyway. Takumi's thing is drifting, and Akio's is everything, but to put the car on its side. The thing is to press the accelerator pedal until the car goes flying, the insane quest after top speed. The story then begins with Akio, a boy still in high school who really likes cars, and by himself he's already worked long enough to buy a Fairlady Zeto Sanichi. But deep inside he already knows that the car is not enough. One day, his school friend's older brother found a Zeto Samaru that was going to be dismantled. From the name you can already assume that the Samaru is the previous generation of the car that Akio has, but maybe they could get something good out of it, so they go there to see the car. But once at the site, the indescribable aura of that junk blue car captures Akio's heart and he decides to buy it in full. It doesn't make much sense for someone to go from a Z31 to a Z30 in order to run faster, but this Samaru was different. The car not only called Akio, but inside the engine bay, it had a motor that is certainly not the original configuration that should have been there, a L28 twin turbo. It turns out that this car was famous in Tokyo's underground night races, and received the name Akuma no Zeto, the Demon Z, because it was involved in several accidents whenever the name on his document changed. Accidents that even took the life of one of its owners, one who had the same name and surname as Akio. In other words, the entire atmosphere around that blue Zeto was macabre. A normal person seeing all this negative mystique would just let the Zeto be scrapped, maybe even pay for it to happen and look for another car. But it was already too late. The devil had already laid his hands on the boy, who will now do everything to put this car on the streets again, and then finally try to tame this beast of the night. From there, we followed the entire story of Akio and the Zeto, through the nights along the Wanganen region, where every time a problem to be solved and a new adversary to be defeated appears, and the relentless quest to drive fast, very fast. It's a simple premise, right? Cool car, boy drives, beats his opponents, no one dies, yay! But even though the main idea is a bit otherworldly, with the Demon Z and all, it doesn't go beyond the intangible feeling. You won't see the car shooting powers on the Japanese highways. One Gun Midnight is a much denser and more grounded work than most of the stories of the genre, and goes into much more detail than Initial D inside this automotive world, and it's certainly not very beginner friendly. There are things that even I, who kind of live in this type of environment, leave me without knowing what's going on. And there are things that I just have to say, oh, that's crazy, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. So we come to a problem that if you are not the type of person who can consume any work that is put in front of you, or have a strong desire to see a racing story set in Japan, enjoying One Gun Midnight can be a little hard. But why exactly this work, even being the second most famous right behind Initial D, find itself in a totally different group? First of all, for a normal person, regardless of whatever if you just like cars or anime, it's very likely that One Gun Midnight it's not a work that would fall on your radar. like what happens with Initial D. An ordinary person who likes cars and is under 40 have probably heard of Initial D, or is someone who likes anime or manga, even without being interested in cars, have probably also heard of Initial D, but One Gun Midnight most likely not. Why? Well, it's a work that ironically, like its own story, is very underground in the popular view of either two communities, be the car community or the anime. But if you specifically like JDM cars, or have a certain interest in Japanese automotive story, One Gun Midnight is certainly one of the few stories that interested you. And in this part of the community, it's really difficult for you to find someone who haven't watched it, because anyone who looks for it is the type of person who will like it, and the chances of those kind of people not liking it are very small. It's that famous phrase, it's a big fish in a small pond. Whoever searches for it and watches likes it. Those who don't watch aren't interested enough in the story. But let's see, you are coming from Initial D or Tokyo Drift. Someone recommends One Gun Midnight to you. Is it worth going and watching? That's where we come to the second point that makes this story a step further from the others. This story has a very familiar format of street racing battles and such, but it goes much deeper into what this whole underground world consists of. Much more than Initial D, that the Hachiroku kind of appears better every day because Bunta worked magic out of scene. Here, the characters get their hands dirty, the engine's messed up, let's stick our finger inside and fix it. And it talks about a lot of very complex stuff and shows a lot of what someone in that world has to do to solve the problems that arise in order to continue to be able to enjoy their hobby. It's certainly not a work that only cares about car driving fast on the street because it's cool. And there's no fear of spending a large percentage of each episode just talking about technical terms and infinite numbers. All the details are very well done to really show a situation that is the life of certain people. It is a work that seeks to be theoretically correct in terms of information, because as we have already established that those who watch it and like it are people who are really interested in these things. A large part of its audience are people who potentially understand a lot about that subject. And some legal wrong thing will mean that the author doesn't know exactly what he's talking about, and it's just making stuff up. But even though it's very technical, it's also a work that serves as an escalator for those who like the subject, a more detailed situation and such, but are still not that prominent in this type of information for a reason or another. Because of this much deeper dive into the automotive world of performance than just saying that they put a turbo on the car and a carbon fiber hood and the car is now amazing, that you like Initial D doesn't necessarily make you like One Gun Midnight. But that's not all that limits the enjoyment of many people. We don't stop here. The story itself is nothing special, the characters are just a spectrum of potatoes. Everyone is crazy addicted to cars and doesn't seem to have many emotions, and react a lot in pattern. If you drink a shot every time Kitami hears something and smile with his head to the side, you will fall into a coma. And all the characters know what's going on the other side of the city, by osmosis. It's crazy. Yeah, it's certainly not something that you could say has a very good quality, but of course it has its moments too. One of them is an idea that is very pertinent in the story, which is the idea of a person's motivation, and within that something interesting that I have never ever seen before being addressed in other stories. I wouldn't say it was done the most perfect way possible here, but only having a plotline about this is already cool. The situation where you feel your motivation for something you really like to do starts to fade away when you see and feel other people close to you seem to be more dedicated, efficient, and more capable than you in something you like that was previously your safe space. This internal battle of innocent envy that is difficult to understand, as if the world had painted a target on your back and is sinking you into the mud. Beyond that, there are several situations that test the motivations of all the characters, which is really cool to see. Nothing amazing, but it's kinda cool. Anyway, its animation is already quite dated, but it has its charm. Impressively, the CGI of the cars are the best part. They are very well done. Some moments are weird, but most of the time they are almost perfect. They react perfectly with the streets, the speed and the characters. It's really good. And I would say that it's better than 90% of what was presented in Initial D. So, great. Whether you like cars or anime, more or less, it's not guaranteed, but maybe you will like One Gun Midnight. But it's very likely that you won't like it too much. Okay, you like the JDM world of cars. Your dream is to have a Skyline GTR, a Supra and all. You probably will really like this world. What will drive you to like this series? It's not its story quality, it's not its visual quality, it's them, its soul, and its theme. If you like the mystique of Japanese underground tuning, One Gun Midnight is basically your fries with cheese and bacon. Because in some ways, the entire story is based on real life. One Gun is not a fictional stretch of road, it's really a place in Tokyo. A place that years ago was legendary in the country and for those lucky people outside Japan who saw a Japanese tuning DVD or magazine in the prehistoric years before the 2000s. This was a place that people, teams, workshops put to the test and really run like hell in the dead of the night, putting their lives at risk just for the pursuit of speed. On what is perhaps the only part of the roads in all of Japan where it would be possible to reach 300 km per hour. Blackbird, Akuma no Zeto, on one level or another, are cars that existed, from people who existed, from teams that raced on the highway. One Gun Midnight is a dish full of the history of a mysterious world that made many people not only in Japan, but all over the world, love the complex machines that we call cars, and a culture that for many is extremely interesting and carries a mysterious and impressive air. But you know, right? The person who used to read automotive magazines to pass the time when they were a kid will love this. But who doesn't fit with this? It's kinda difficult, you know. One Gun Midnight, it's a work that knows its audience and is more than happy with it. There isn't much of an attempt or possibility to capture other people. A person who doesn't like the theme or just isn't that interested simply won't stay entertained just with the characters racing each other in cars all the time in practically the same ways over and over again. Here there isn't even the change of environment like what happens in Initial D with the various thugs around the country. Here is just the one gun. Tatsumi, Dekoku Futo, they go out sometimes to other places, Osaka, Gotemba, but it's not the focus of the story, so, right? A person who doesn't like the topic will hear the name of engine, the car, turbo pressure, chassis rigidity, and won't understand anything, and we will all go over the head, and that's it. So if everything I said on this video is something that interests you, you don't even need to think twice to go watch One Gun Midnight now. You don't even need to wait for the video to reach the auto screen. You will like it a lot, and after it's over, you will be sad once again, because there isn't another work like this to watch. And if you are the other type of person, and if all these things that I said aren't your interior calling, that you don't like cars, or maybe you like but not that much, that if you watched Initial D was primarily because of Eurobeat, you can even try to watch to see if you like it. Here there are really cool songs too, some even Eurobeat, but it's very likely that you won't like this work very much. It's the kind of story that you can tell whether you will like or not before you even start watching. Bro, they make all the mystique of the deadly machines of the tuner of hell Kitami-jun, but what kills those guys is not even the machines he makes, but the guy himself. Asshole only gives the wrong ideas for those guys. He almost killed the bald man with overwork like he had a gun pointed at him. Poor guy. I had to do that to the chassis before and it's not easy, I tell you. Sheesh, poor guy.